The move to Mount Prospect was a life-changing event for our family. We moved into what was probably an upper middle class area at that time. They had no idea how they were going to afford to live there. They had no idea what life in the suburbs was going to be like for them or for us. It was a move that really slingshotted our lives as children to a different level.
Like Jim said, took a huge risk in their life to provide us with a whole different life.
Tom actually adjusted to life in Mount Prospect quite well. In fact, from my parents' perspective, he probably adjusted a little too well.
And we gave them lots of grief as kids. I was probably one of the world's best juvenile delinquents. Until my father finally said, "You're 17, you don't have any sense in your head, or get some sense in your head." And he finally said, "Get off the streets and go to school and do something with your life."
I'll share a few examples of the adventures of Dr. Tom. One Halloween night, the police bring Tom home, having found him walking down the street with some kind of a scary mask. They had gotten a complaint from some elderly folks about some kids knocking on their window and scaring them with the mask. Tom's version was that his older brother had it and saw him and gave him the mask and told him to take it for him. And he was just an innocent bystander. And then there was the water tower. Several of Tom's friends had started a business one summer. They would go around to houses that offered to spray paint people's addresses, numbers on curbs using stencils. It was a pretty creative way for kids to earn some money back at that time. This is the 50s, folks. This is the early 60s. One morning, people going through downtown Mount Prospect were greeted with the word "polluted" stenciled in paint on the top of the Mount Prospect water pump. Now, I don't think anyone was ever caught on that one, but we all did know who was involved. Tom claimed he was just there and he was only holding the stencils in paint. Their crowning achievement, however, occurred during their senior high school. It was their senior class prank. Now, I'm going to tell you, as a former school administrator, one of the things we worry about with those activities is that the next class is going to try to outdo the class before, and so on, and so on, and so on, and it's just never going to end. Well, in Tom's case, they set the bar high enough, I don't think the school administration ever had to worry about that. For their senior prank, Tom and his friends decided to cement a toilet to the front of Arlington Heights High School. Now, I have to say, this is a pretty impressive endeavor. It was not a random act of stupidity. They had actually organized themselves into work groups. One group was in charge of setting the forms, another group mixed the cement, and still another group was in charge of setting up a diversion so that they wouldn't get caught, and they were shooting off fireworks on the other side of town. When Tom turned 16, my dad decided that getting him a car would be okay. He got Tom, through my uncle, a black 1947 Chevy. The car had fenders that were rusting off, and they fastened them on with strips of sheet metal and screws. The windshield wipers and defrosters didn't work, and often in the winter he'd have to drive with the windows open and scrape the snow off so he could see. Patty was probably with him on some of those drives. Tom thought the car was awesome. On top of all that, he and his friends painted two very wide white racing stripes down the middle of the car from bumper to bumper, and thus was born the skunk. A speeding ticket waiting to happen. Tom Tom only needed to be a few miles over the speed limit, and that car was pulled over.
He was always known to be a fast driver, and he would just whiz by, pass us, and my dad would just shake his head.
When Tom got into high school, he and some of his friends found about gymnastics, and they thought it would be cool to try it. That was kind of about the level it was at. And I remember one of his friends on the next block built a horizontal bar out of the pipe like you use for natural gas lines and stuff. And they built a horizontal bar in the backyard so they could practice. Tom rigged up a pulley system on the joists in our basement so he could lift weights and simulate the movements on being on the still rings. As a team, they won back-to-back state championships in 1959 and 1960. Tom became a state champion on the still rings, a two-time state champion on the still rings, and received a scholarship to Southern Illinois University. Our parents said, hey, go to school, find something different, and you'll have it better than we did.
Fortunately, it was the gymnastics that gave me the opportunity to do that, and I had a hell of a ride with that. It gave me opportunities where I traveled all over the country, met people, we won a lot of events. It was a terrific experience.
And while at SIU, Tom earned a silver medal on the still rings in the NCAA gymnastics championships. I think it was about halfway through his 4 years at Southern that Tom decided he wanted to become a doctor.
And so it wasn't until the middle of college where, here I was partying and doing gymnastics and just having a good time. And then through high school, we had no ambitions of doing anything other than enjoying life. And it was nice that I was able to grow up in that period. It's a lot different than the stress the kids now have. But about sophomore year, I started seeing the seniors graduate and getting jobs and getting married and thought, holy geez, a couple more years, that's me. And then the light finally went on that maybe I got to find a vocation that I like. Happen to like biology, and one of my fraternity buddies said, you ought to think about pre-med. And I said, you're crazy. I'd never have the grades or anything. But it did, and it just clicked from there, and it went on, and it kept going, and it worked out. And I was very lucky to get into med school and pursue this career.
And that decision set in motion another series of life-changing events far beyond what he or anyone could have imagined. For our family, going to college was a big deal. Having someone pursue a degree in medicine was a breakout move. Tom and Patty married while he was in medical school. I remember the first Christmas they were married, and they made gifts for everyone because that's all they could afford. I remember getting a piggy bank made out of a plastic milk gallon that they had decorated. And that piggy bank held my poker money for a lot of years, and finally just kind of crumbled. Patty worked through medical school to support their efforts. She kept the house and family on course during the early years when Tom was getting started. And then when he started his own practice, she took her commitment to their dream to another level, taking over the business part of the practice. Together, their teamwork and their love and support for one another have resulted in the fulfillment of their dream. One of the traits I've always admired about Tom is his determination. He didn't say a lot. He just did stuff. It was like that with gymnastics. It was like that when he decided to become a doctor. And I think it was similar to that when he decided to set up his own practice. He just thought he could do this. And another quality I've always admired in Tom, and I think makes him special, is his ability to get people to laugh. He's always had a lighthearted way of looking at the world. He could always get a laugh with an antic, a silly face, a funny story. When I was working, I used to get to interview candidates for teaching positions every spring. And that was really one of the fun parts of my job. I really enjoyed seeing the excitement and enthusiasm coming into the profession. And I would sometimes ask the candidates, tell me about someone in their life who was a hero to them, It was a different way to get at what was important to people. And I think we need to remember those people who have made a difference and who have inspired us to become the kind of person we want to be. In deciding to ask that question, I also had to think about how I would answer it. The answer was easy. My hero is Tom.